Inverse mirrored reflexive apathy, the dark engine of collapse. It is collapse, not a poetic numbness, not a clean anesthetic. It is collapse as a living event inside your nervous system, a reflexive apathy turned inward so hard it feels like hatred. You are not only empty, you are filled with badness that feels older than you are. The interjected voices that once managed shame and behaviour now speak without filter. They do not whisper, they roar. They tell you you're defective. They tell you you're shameful. They tell you you deserved it. They tell you you are the narcissist. They tell you you're dangerous, worthless, irredeemable. And you believe them because there is no other voice left. This is inverse mirrored, reflexive apathy, IMRA, in its truest form. Not just numbness, but a self directed annihilation impulse. The narcissist's cold empathy now lives inside you as a structural reflex, feeding off your own psyche as supply. The sexual engine of collapse. In many cases, sex is where the collapse begins, even while the fantasy is still alive. The narcissist's sexuality does not come from relational desire. It comes from autoerotic circuitry, often forged in trauma. They are not making love to you, they are enacting an inverted dance with the mother imago, the absent or engulfing object that first activated their nervous system. You sense this absence even in the first encounters. It's uncanny. You feel chosen, celebrated, sexually anointed. But beneath the devotion is something mechanical, rehearsed, overwhelming. It feels like being used as a mirror, not a body to connect with, but a surface for them to reflect their own hunger back to themselves. This is why the sex feels both sacred and disturbing. They want to be devoured. They want to devour you. You are pulled into acts, routines, fantasies that seem too fast, too deep, too charged, and yet feel impossible to say no to, because the act of compliance has already begun. This is not love, it is object acquisition via the libidinal thread. And once you have submitted, once the compliance is sealed, the sex begins to change. It becomes obligatory, repetitive, then invasive. You are drawn into a vortex of sexual expectation where your body no longer belongs to you. You become the good object, the willing object, the compliant object, and when you flinch, when your real self resists, that moment is punished with coldness, withdrawal, or shame. But here's the truth, this was never for you. It was not about you. It was about activating their own aliveness by draining yours. And at the end of it all, you are left with a wordless disgust. The sense that you were somehow invaded. The profound injustice of having your intimacy weaponized against you. This is Imra in sexual form, not just numbness, but a mirrored death drive enacted through the body, burning through your inner world long after the touch is gone. The orbit. In this state, you are no longer living a linear life. You are in a psychic orbit, spinning around the frozen imago, the idealized object you once thought was saving you. It is a gravitational well. Everything falls toward it, your thoughts, your memories, your body. On top of this orbit sits CIPR, collapse induced psychotic regression, moments of derealization, Time fragments and voices of the past feel present. The world begins to look like a set. Your own mind begins to feel like a stranger's. This is not weakness. It's what happens when ASR3, the anticipatory shadow reflex, overshadows ASR2, the healthy anticipatory stress reflex. It is the death drive turning back inward, the self eating its own scaffolding because the external gaze is gone. It does not feel like nothing. It feels like too much, a black tide rising up from the base of the skull, pressure behind the eyes, 1,000 arguments running simultaneously in your head, shame and rage layered so tightly you cannot tell them apart. You can be on a sofa with someone who loves you and still feel as though you are falling through space. You are not only sad, you are persecuted by your own interior world. It is relentless. It does not switch off when you sleep. You wake up in panic. You check your phone. You check your breath. You check the room, and the voices are still there. This is the death drive. Freud called it thanatos. Pitt maps it as Imra, the mirrored apathy that executes the collapse. It is not just absence of feeling, it is the psyche's attempt to return to zero, to erase what cannot be metabolized. And yet, in the middle of it, there is still a point of resistance, a faint yes to life buried under the noise. That is why you're hearing these words. That is why you are still here. That is why the loop hasn't killed you. Naming it is the first light. You are not defective. You are not the narcissist. You are experiencing the aftermath of being idealized by an absence and then discarded by an absence and left with a self that was built around a void. This is not you breaking. This is the false self breaking off you. This is the organizing gate fully visible. The moment where you stop supplying the void and begin to find the fragments of the self underneath. It is brutal. It is terrifying. It feels like death. But it is the beginning of authorship. Peace out. Loads of love.